One of the nice things about being in the safety and health business is often people come to training and presentations with extremely low expectations. People say, why did you come to this safety course? It's because I had to, it's a compliance issue, whatever. So the wonderful thing is when people come to any sort of talk like this with extremely low expectations, it's not too difficult to exceed those expectations. So I'm not sure I'm going to be a motivational speaker as well. I am going to talk a little bit about health and safety. We also have an E part of this, which is environmental health and safety. You know, we're getting involved in the whole compliance aspect of it. But for this talk and for the Lunch and Learn, we're just going to focus on health and safety, some of the regulatory aspects of it, and also some of the non-regulatory. You know, why do you do it, you know, beyond that you just have to do it in order to be in compliance with the law? The first thing is, you know, when you start talking about things like health and safety is where's the pain? And you know, what keeps you up at night? And people are, especially if you're running a business, if you're managing people, you know, what are the things that keep you up at night? And we know, you know, in this time, revenue, liability, that whole aspect of liability. What is liability when you get involved with health and safety? You get all sorts of different things. You have expenses, direct expenses, indirect expenses, longer term, the whole aspect of expenses associated with liability. And what are your basic health and safety issues? And we're going to kind of address a few of these and kind of get involved that when you start looking at my experience with people when they deal with health and safety programs, it's sort of the issue that, well, if it doesn't hurt me now, I hope it doesn't hurt me tomorrow. What I don't know can hurt me type aspect. And and that's not a good way to run any operation. You know, I always say from a risk management standpoint, you got to look at what you do, you got to look at what are the liabilities and risks that you get involved with and address them. And if you decide not to address them, if you decide you can't afford to do certain things, that's fine. That's a good management decision. But I think it's very important to at least identify where your strengths, your weaknesses, and your gaps are when it comes to this whole program. The agenda, who are we, EMILCOT? We're going to start a little bit. If you go back, some of you can remember Casey Stengel when Casey Stengel had the 1962 Mets, which kind of rivaled the 2012 Mets. And I think they lost 100 and some games that year, and he brought everybody in, you know, and he was kind of a curmudgeonly old manager, and he goes, okay, I'm going to start at the beginning. This is a ball, okay? So we're going to start a little bit with touching on what is OSHA. The talk's going to take about 40 minutes, give you a little overview. I'm going to talk about if you have inspections or if you get involved with inspections, what are OSHA inspections and what are you going to expect? Some of the aspects of costs of injuries and illnesses, which is really the whole basic. It's a very simple thing. You're going to try to have people come and work with you, for you, whatever, and leave and go home safely, okay? And leave and go home without any sort of illnesses or accidents or injuries. So that's what we're talking about. Health and safety programs, where do you start? It's often difficult to say, geez, I know I need to do it, but where do I start? You know, do I start in just giving everybody safety glasses or hard hats, or do you start programmatically? And we'll talk a little bit about that also. We do have a solution. There's a pitch at the end in a sense, not necessarily to soft sell in our approach with regards to how do you start in this whole process, and if you need assistance, if you need help, we surely can be there to help you out. I'll give you a little bit of background of me. I started in the business as an OSHA inspector. I was a lot younger then. In fact, I looked like I was probably in my teens when I started right out of college, and it was a fascinating first job. It was in the late 70s when there was quite a bit of manufacturing in New Jersey still. I spent a lot of time in the porcelain manufacturing businesses in Trenton. I don't know if you knew there were porcelain. It was a huge, huge industry up until probably, you know, there's still some remnants today. American Standard still has a big facility there. I don't know if it's open anymore, but porcelain manufacturing. We did a lot of chemical plant manufacturing, Bound Brook, American Cyanamid, if you know where the TD minor league baseball field is. It used to be a big organic chemical plant right there, American Cyanamid, which turned into Wyeth and a few other companies since then. I also inspected, I remember, the Ford assembly plant in Edison, New Jersey, that were making Pintos. And that was pretty interesting to get involved in manufacturing, and that's long gone. So I started in this business working for OSHA. I worked for a mining company after that, mining metal refining company for 6 years in Greenwich, Connecticut. Then I went to work for a consulting engineering firm that was based out of the Trade Center. Our operation was in New Jersey and got involved with all sorts of, kind of got me into the consulting business and started at Emilcott almost 26 years ago. The name came with Emilcott is Emily and Scott. Emily's 29 now and Scott is 27, so they were quite young when I started the company. We do have quite a bit of work in the consulting, a certified staff. When we talk about certified, the term industrial hygienist, that deals with occupational health people, exposures, dealing with chemicals, noise, things like that. So that's what industrial hygienists do. Safety professionals, kind of self-evident. Hazardous materials managers, that gets involved with usually handling and disposing, storing chemicals, things like this, so you don't get in trouble with disposing them incorrectly or any of the other aspects and laws in the environmental side. Some of our service areas, we have a number of different businesses. One of it is basically compliance and training. This kind of supports the manufacturings, the warehouses, the chemical plants. You know, we work with all the pharmaceutical companies around, the utilities, large companies, Fortune. I don't know if they have the Fortune list as much anymore, but Fortune 50s companies, the Honeywells and the Pfizers, and we also work for a lot of the small, the mid-sized companies. So we have a whole kind of smorgasbord of different clients in that area. Construction safety is a big part. Construction, which can be just basic construction, or it also can be construction in hazardous areas, which in New Jersey, there's very few areas where haven't been some sort of development already, you know, in that facility. There's very few, as they call, virgin land out there. So part of that aspect is how do you build something and build it safely without exposing the public and workers. Indoor air quality, we call it in the building science end. This is, you know, really a fairly complex issue, not just dealing with an environment like this where you say, is it safe to work in this environment? Is it safe from, you know, you get involved in the old days with asbestos, you get lead, you get microbiological mold, you've heard. Also from vapor intrusion. A lot of these buildings have been built in areas where there's something coming into the building, you know, that it could be anything from underground petroleum pools of waste of things like this. But so we get involved with all sorts of interesting things in the air quality in hospitals and so on. Emergency response preparedness, this is the planning part where, you know, if you have an emergency, and I always tell the story because I've done a lot of work with operations people, with managers, a lot of people who are run companies, a lot of CEOs, all different levels. And when you're evaluated and how well you do a job, it's generally not how well you do a job day to day to day, you know, when things are going right. It's often, you know, how well did this person do a job when everything fell apart, when the emergency occurred? And you can go back to a lot of people who have lost their jobs, but have also, you know, lost their reputation or have been branded because when there was an emergency, when something happened, did they handle it the way they should have handled it? And that's part of the emergency response preparedness, not just fire and hurricane, but also when you start getting into loss control and risk management, there's a whole different production issues dealing with emergency response.